when you identify your distractions, you identify the root cause of your inaction. And one of the causes of my inaction, even though it was beautiful as can be, was my family. I needed to
Mhm.
separate to have that free-thinking time, not to be distracted with a toddler, not to be distracted with a teen, not to be distracted with, hey babe, you've been gone all day. Let's sit down and have dinner together. I needed that time to fully focus.
Happy Wednesday, my winners and goal getters. Welcome back to the Getting the Win Show. I am your host, Mellissa T, the Procrastination Bully. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if this is your first time, welcome to the show. You are in for a powerful one. Today, I'm interviewing Dimyas Perdue, who is an extreme execution certified coach. He is the founder of Purdue Leadership Institute and the author of a new book called Elevation Requires Change, the Journey Towards Purpose and Fulfillment. So, in this episode, we're not only digging into key concepts in the book that are going to be helpful for you, but we dive deep, super deep into EQ, emotional intelligence, and of course, the impact on procrastination. Because the beauty with Demias is not only is he an EQ coach with the flight assessment through extreme execution, but his 9 to 5, like his day to day job, is also dealing with EQ. So he talks about how those things overlap. We go into specific tools that you can use to help self regulate and to help self diagnose, if you will, not in terms of clinical illnesses or anything like that, but emotionally diagnose where you are, how you can kind of pause a situation or a conversation that may not be moving in a fruitful direction. So he and I geek out on this stuff, similar to the interview you recently saw with myself and L. David Harris. We geeked out on EQ and behavior modification a few weeks ago. But enjoy this interview. Take all the notes possible, like literally, you will need pen and paper for this one. There are way too many gems to leave on the table. So be sure to run this back at half speed if you need to, but take all the notes possible. Enjoy. As promised, I have got the one and only Dimyas Perdue in the building. Dimyas, welcome to the show.
Listen, Melissa T, thank you for having me. I'm excited about this one. We've talked about it for a while. So I'm pumped up. I'm pumped up. I'm excited for it. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. Like we've been planning this for a minute. Demias is somebody that is always in demand because of what he teaches. As you guys know, I've been all of the month of May, I've been focusing on Mental Health Awareness Month because that is what May is for. This episode is going to air a little bit later, but I want to keep the conversation going because mental health and emotional intelligence are the keys to beating procrastination. You guys have heard me beat that drum over and over and over again because that's the truth. That's just facts. So I brought Demias on not only to discuss emotional intelligence in further detail, but this brother is also an author. So he is the author of the awesome book Elevation Requires Change, and the subtitle is The Journey Towards Purpose and Fulfillment. So y'all are seeing Demias in like the dope swag right now, but like this
Right, right.
Demias is another beast. Like suited up Demias is another beast, yo.
Like, I like my motto is suits and sweats. You know what I mean? Like I love my suits, but I love my sweats too. And I got to be able to do
Abs-
them both for me to be authentically me.
Absolutely. So first, before we dive into the book, kind of talk a little bit about your company, Purdue Leadership Institute, and the kind of work that you do as you're speaking around the country. Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Before I'll call it PLI for short, Purdue Leadership Institute. Before I founded PLI with my bride, there was a true recognition that there was a gap in the way people handled their emotions. There was a gap in people's ability to develop a level of resilience that was necessary for how to do life and navigate it effectively. And there was
Mm,
another gap when it came to leadership, how leaders actually show up and how they operate. And all of that stemmed, that vision that I have for that, all of that stemmed from my career.
mm,
As you know, I spent 22 years in the Marine Corps, all active duty time. And during that time, I realized one, where there was a lack of emotional intelligence, two, where there's a lack of leadership, and three, there was a lack of resilience. And although there
Mm,
were pockets of excellence who did it well, there was also a greater majority who did not do it as well. And I knew, wow, you know what? If the Marine Corps is only 185,000 strong, and I know I'm transitioning, what does the rest of the world look like? If this is the creme de la creme and they're dealing with these things, in my transition, I knew I did not want to just go out and teach communication. I didn't want to just go out and teach how to um, do public presentations or whatever else, right? I knew it needed to be bigger. And being that I identified the gap in the Marine Corps, and as I started to transition, I saw how great it was. It's there. I saw how great it was in the rest of the world. I then made the decision, like, you know what? I'm going to focus where I know my gift is
mm,
and also where the greatest need is. And that's the reason why Purdue Leadership Institute was founded. And it's largely in part because the world praises emotion suppression, but I believe the greatest leaders, the greatest communicators, the people who are able to bounce back from adversity the best are the ones who express, who have a greater ability to express their emotions and deal with the challenges that they face. So that's the premise on why we created it. And it's been great being able to travel the world to do it.
awesome, awesome. So are you typically doing lectures? Are you doing workshops where they're really unpacking
Yeah.
their things? And then are you also, is it like B2C or B2B? Like how is your business model?
Yeah. So primarily it's been B2B.
Okay.
Primarily it's been B2B when we talk about what we do. That's been, going doing the larger keynotes from my business, to another business for those who are not familiar there. And then the other portion is definitely with the workshops. I do far more workshops than I do keynote presentations. But what happens
Okay.
is the keynotes become a large driver for future workshops. They get there,
Hmm.
get they get Dimyas for an hour, and we get in there and we're banging it out. But what happens is the line at the end of the keynote takes me just as long to get through. And I'm like, listen, talking with the leaders in those spaces and the managers, I'm like, listen, why don't we do this better? Instead of just bringing me in for one keynote, why don't we come in for the keynote, and why don't we set up workshops so people can actually make it practical? And so, yes, I do keynotes. Yes, there are the workshops, but then the other portion is the coaching aspect that lives within that. I love being able to do one-on-one coaching, but I'm only one person. So that's why I
That
prefer
part.
the group settings, because it gives me the greatest opportunity to impact the most. So that's how we typically operate.
That's awesome. So for those, in the coaching arena, or you're working on building, if a coaching business is your luxury item, like Demaya just gave you the cheat code there, if that's something that you want to do. So shout out to you and the bride, as he calls her, the commanding officer. I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, shout out to you guys for that. And guys, I can attest, I can understand why the line is so much longer after a keynote versus a workshop, because as members of the UOU Mastermind, Demias is one of the coaches in there. He's done presentations for our mastermind, and we gobble it all up because the information is
Yep.
highly impactful and like it's actionable. You know what I mean? There's a interview coming up. Demias, I have a guest that she shares 30 ways to beat overwhelm. And one of the things I shared with her that I loved about her steps is that they're easy and free. You know what I mean?
Oh, I love it.
And
I love
yeah,
that.
and that's what I love about the information that you share, the actionable steps that you share in your workshops. Like they're easy and free. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? They are,
absolutely.
or at least they're understandable. They're simple. They're not necessarily easy in some cases because we're doing the inner work.
What
But
we always
yes, for
say,
sure.
what we always say is simple, yes, easy, no.
Right.
Simple concepts, but easy to do, no. But that's the whole premise behind EQ, right? You know what I mean? It says you get this knowledge, you get this information, and you should do something with it. But many times who we are gets challenged. And many times we would rather hold on to who we are rather than
Right.
adjusting what the situation requires. So yeah.
Yeah, and actually speak a little bit more to that. Why do we find that challenging? Because I'll be honest, like there was a time when I was a little bit younger when I first started in the media industry.
Yeah.
Demise, I was somebody that was entirely all natural. You are looking at like a more mature Melissa. Like The
Yeah.
previous Mellissa never liked makeup ever. And when the the CEO of the company I was working for was challenging me to start wearing it, I saw that as an attack on who I was as a person. Like, why do we as human beings do that? Like, why are we so protective of who we are versus the potential of who we can be when we make the change?
Yeah. Well, I think it's twofold when we talk about who we are, because if somebody is giving me guidance, and that
Hmm.
guidance that they're giving me when it comes to something as sensitive as who I am, how I view that person in the mirror, there's a great level of difficulty with that, because I may not agree with the version of the person that you want to see within your company. And if
Hmm.
that goes against my values, so for example, a lot of women who operate in spaces, you may have somebody that say, you know what, you don't dress feminine enough, or
Hmm.
or I don't like the way you wear your hair. This is big in communities, right? And so
Facts.
I don't like the way you wear your hair. Your hair doesn't look professional. Those earrings don't look professional. And so when it's something that goes against who you are, that's extremely difficult. But we
Hmm.
have to be able to figure out, is this an attack on who I am, or is this person truly trying to set me up for success? When we look at that from the lens of an EQ perspective, that supervisor, that leader may be able to see something in you, and they have information that you don't know. So their
Right.
level of social awareness is greater. Hey, Melissa T, I know you're great at operating, but I know at the level that you're going to get to, if you continue to do A, B, C, and D, your door is going to stop at, you're going to stop at floor 6. But if
Hmm.
you implement these changes, then you're guaranteed to get to that top floor, right? That's only good when I see that this is in alignment with what my assignment truly is. But if I feel like you're going against who I am as a person, it's going to be very difficult for me to receive that type of information. So I think it really depends on, one, who's delivering that information, and two, is that information that they're giving you in alignment with your morals and your values?
And then that automatically implies number three, you have to already have done the work to define what your values are.
Yeah.
Because full transparency, at the time I hadn't. I was still I was still emotionally immature at the time, and I didn't quite realize, like, I'm someone that, since I am a creative, I tend to want to buck the conventional
Yeah.
norms.
Yeah.
But the news industry is a news industry, y'all. Like, there's a formula to it. Like, there's certain things you have to do in order to be taken seriously within the industry. Like, the one item of rebellion, if you will, that I was able to succeed with was the afro. Like, the afro became the brand for us because we're a black owned news media outlet, and like, the representation, we filled a need in
Yeah.
terms of representation in the Central Florida market. So that worked. But yeah, in terms of the makeup, like, I had to just calm
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
and receive the instruction,
Yeah.
because the industry is what it is, and it did indeed work out. Like, to your point, there were certain elements of that industry that I was not aware of that the founder was aware of, because he had spent 15 years in front of the cameras. So he knew the ins and outs of the news media industry. He knew how to get their attention. He knew how to attract them to newsworthy topics. And he saw how the reporters used to carry themselves. So
That's
he
good.
had a lot of inside information that I didn't know.
That's
So you
good.
are absolutely correct about that.
I love that, because the way I see that is, at that point in time, that was the captain of that ship.
Hmm.
I want you to picture this. Picture you being in that ship, and you being with the rest of the team, and your job is to row. So you got the oars in your hand, and your job is to row. But you've got the captain who not only has the experience, but picture them with that old school looking telescope looking out
Yep.
destination where he wants to go. And they can see clearly in the distance, here's where Demyas needs to be. But if he's not doing these things, he's not
Hmm.
going to be prepared. So I can see this. So what they then do is take their vision for the future, coupled with their understanding of who you are, and they go to you and say, hey, this is what a good coach does. This is what a good manager does. This is what a good leader and a strategist would do. They'll come to you because they've got that lens. They've looked
Right.
out They've got that experience and now they can guide you. But many times we don't trust that. We want to trust our inexperience, right? We want to trust our youthful
Yep,
ambitions.
that part.
And that's what we do. And then that's how we end up having to go further than we necessarily would have had to. Now we got to navigate all these detours because we didn't want to listen to the person who had the vision in the beginning. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. And we actually discussed this on Monday evening during the relationship development call where we were talking about the importance of the benefits of being authentic. And my answer was it saves time, right? Like when you're authentic, you know who you are, you know what your value system is, like you took the time to establish it, then you can clearly communicate your boundaries. And then
Yes.
the other person doesn't have to do any guesswork in terms of how they can experience you.
Yeah.
Versus if for whatever reason that comes to light, because it usually does when you be a fake, it comes to light.
Always.
Not only have you lost time in terms of now they gotta now navigate the real you since they weren't dealing with the real you in the first place.
Right.
And then you may potentially have wasted time because you might lose the relationship. They might
Yeah. And I
draw a hard boundary and cut you out altogether, so all your hard work is lost.
and I don't even want to say
You
I'm
know?
losing. You robbed me of my time by not being your authentic self. You robbed me
Ooh,
because
that's good.
I came into this willingly, right?
Yes.
I opened the doors of my home, I opened the doors of my business, I opened the doors of my heart, and you robbed me of that time. I thought we were in this together. The entire time you were robbing me of that. And now I got to go back and try to figure this out. And you're right. That hard line, of course that'll be said. It's different if I just misunderstood. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? You told me we were in this. You told me you were hungry and I brought a plate, but I didn't know while I was feeding you, you were in there. You were in there. You were in the jury box just taking. You know what I'm saying? So many times, we got to be so careful about that when it comes to relationships. That's one of the hardest ships to navigate. That's one of the
Mm,
hardest to navigate. You know what I'm saying? We all navigating life, but the hardest ship to be in. You got partnerships. That's cool. That's one thing, right? You got partnerships. You got leadership, right? We got ownership. We have some
yes.
of us got it. That's the hardest one too, right? But the reality is the difficulties really live in relationships because we just don't know what waters these people have been through, and they don't understand the waters that you've been in. And when you get together and you think that you're rowing in one direction, if somebody's not being authentic, man, that's a rough push and pull.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's actually a perfect segue because Demise goes into detail like this, what he just talked about with the different ships, that is one whole chapter in the book, like
Yeah.
towards the latter end of the book. So this is a perfect segue into discussing the book. I wanted to go over a couple of the chapters because they're fire, dude. Like
Thank
y'all get
thank you.
this book, okay?
That's-
For one, I love the layout because each chapter is roughly a page and a half
yeah.
on average. Like it's an easy read, y'all. Like so the chapter don't be intimidated by the chapter numbers. You're flipping through. Like it's an easy read. And then the beauty of Demias's book, and this is something I always impart to anybody that's writing nonfiction, have your base your book around your takeaways and then pepper your takeaways, your lessons that you want people to learn with specific stories from your life that are
Yeah.
relevant to the lessons.
It's
And
good.
then give the folks homework. So there are exercises in the book for you guys to be able to do in real time to do that deep work. And Demise, I shared this statistic in my interview with L. David Harris, which I was surprised he didn't know it, but it was pretty cool to share that with him. But there's a statistic that says only 1% of the entire global population does their soul work.
Wow.
That's only 80 million people.
Yeah, that's new for me too. I didn't have that one. So that's two of us.
Yeah, only
Yeah.
1% has
Wow.
done their soul work.
Yeah.
So, this kind of book, guys, will drive you to do that soul work if you haven't done it already.
Absolutely.
And the reason I'm touching on this is because all of this points back to beating procrastination,
Mhm.
learning what your value system is, learning the kind of boundaries you would prefer in your relationships, learning what you can and cannot handle, because then that can help, that can inform your decision of whether or not to say yes to something. that can inform your frequency of commitments. So I just wanted to give them like
Yeah,
the
yeah, you dive in. You dive in.
yeah, yeah, the summary of what to expect in the book. But one thing I wanted to touch on first, one of the chapters I wanted to touch on first is you said elevation requires help.
Mhm.
So I would love for you to dig into that because I'm big into like accountability. And I told our folks, I dropped this bomb a couple episodes ago. Chronic procrastination, like habitual procrastination, is an addiction. And the
Yeah.
only way to beat an addiction is with accountability. So I would love to talk to you about
Yeah.
your viewpoint on elevation requiring help.
So thank you for highlighting that one because this book would not be a reality had I not had the help.
Mm,
And the help came in the form of a way that I didn't expect the help to come. I'm going to use a portion of the book to describe what I mean, how I got to elevation requires help. So during my process of preparing to write this book, for years had gone by. I would go and deliver a keynote, and at the end of the keynote, people be like, "Do you have a book? You should write
mm.
a book." And I would always say, "Oh, it's in the works." It was in the works. And I'd go and do a workshop, and they're like, "Hey, do you have some takeaways for us? You got a blog? You got a book?" And I'm like, "No, it's in the work." Well, I've been saying it's in the works from 2015, 2016, 2017, and I had a lot of
Wow.
opportunities. People reaching out, "Hey, if you've got a book, I'm in this position right now. I can push your book over here." But here's the thing, Mellissa. I was more in love with the idea of writing a book than the actual process of writing a book. I like
That's
telling
far, y'all.
I like telling the people I wanted to be an author or that I was an author in the making, right? That felt good to me. But the reality is there was no progress from 2015, no additional progress other than a few voice notes in my phone. I never sat down and put my hands to the plow like I
Mm,
knew I needed to do. And so here comes time for me to retire. I'm retired now, and I'm talking with my bride, Jamie. Let me tell you something. Procrastination bully over here.
you
I
know what I'm
live,
saying?
I live with one too. Let me tell you what she did. Let me tell you what she did. She said, "I know you love your family. You love spending time with us. We're talking about elevation requires help. You love spending time with us. You deployed so many times. You spent so much time away that I know when we're here, you want to give us everything.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I'm going to do. I need you. Actually, I've already booked, not I need you. She says, I've already booked a 5 day stay at a cabin.
I love it.
I've already booked this 5 day stay at the cabin. In addition to that 5 day stay, you have another 5 days broken up in a 2 day, a 2 day, and a 1 day. That's 10 days total. We
Wow.
then set an agreement that you will only talk to me. She says you will only talk to me and the kids at 6:30 at night for 15 minutes. But from sun up to sundown, this is your time to grind. But that wasn't the help. Let me tell you, that was the help, but this is the help line. Can I give this to you?
Come on.
She said, for everybody listening, if after these 10 days you didn't complete this book, you never wanted to write a book. She said, if at the end of these 10 days you didn't complete this book, you never wanted to write the book. And so I got there, and one of the first notes that came in my mind about needing that help, I talk about the cabin in the book. I talk about actually being there in the book. But the reality is, I had to do what I say in there. I had to identify my distractions. And the line that's in the book is when you identify your distractions, you identify the root cause of your inaction. And one of the causes of my inaction, even though it was beautiful as can be, was my family. I needed to
Mm-hmm.
separate to have that pre-thinking time, not to be distracted with the toddler, not to be distracted with the teen, not to be distracted with, "Hey babe, you've been gone all day. Let's sit down and have dinner together." I needed that time to fully focus. And when I did that, that's when I really saw the value of that help. She had a different lens. Guess what? Let's go back to it. She was able to look out and see,
Yep.
"Hey, I see what the issue is. I see where you're going to go, but you're only going to go there if you go and find your cabin." And so that's the first thing I would tell some of your listeners. I had to use the help to be able to find my cabin. What does your cabin look like for you to do what it is you're supposed to do?
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that story, man. Like that was amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had to do the same thing for one of my I have an ebook series that this one is fiction. And I did that. Like I took a trip to Charlotte and stayed with a family friend and hammered out 5 ebooks
Come on.
in that one stay. I want to say visited there for like a month or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes you have to sequester yourself in
And it,
order to
you
get that
know,
focus.
Cal Newport's book, Deep Work. I know you're
Hmm.
right. It is something about deep work. And for me, he talks about a few types, but he talks about the one basically monk mode. Like you
Yes.
go. And I went monk mode. There is a difference when you don't have you give me excited now.
Come on.
There's a difference when you don't have the you know what it's like when you have that like a gnat just
Hmm.
like in your ear. That
Hmm.
for me, that's social media. For me, that's the those are the distraction. It's just like it's annoying enough to make you swat at it, but you have the ability to completely remove yourself from the gnats. And when you go into monk mode, that's what that is. I'm separating myself from the environment where the gnats live. I'm not
Right.
in there. I'm not around social media. When I got back from that cabin, the last thing I wanted to do was go online because I felt that help I got from that moment. There was such a peace that came over me. I had so much clarity by being in monk mode. I could listen so much better because my mind wasn't clouded with everything else that was taking place. And
Mm,
now I crave monk mode. Now I crave the
nice.
deep work. Now I crave, hey, babe, what else do you think I need to do? Now I see the value in asking for that help, right? Because I'm still, although that book product is there, I'm still leveraging the strength that she has as that ATC that she is, right? I still crave that help from her because I see how I was able to elevate from it.
Beautiful. 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 The other question I had as it relates to your book, I noticed there are several letters in there. You have a letter from doubt. I think you have a letter to leadership. I
A
want to
letter
say like there.
to fear, a letter to
Yeah.
fear, a letter from doubt, and the letter that changed everything was
Yeah.
Bob. That's how the book starts off. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of talk about what inspired you to incorporate those into the book.
Yeah. I think it's almost like public speaking for me.
Mm,
We know people's attention span is short these days, very short. Now, I know even with readers, if somebody's going to give me their time, if somebody's going to give me their time and their energy, and they're going to sit down and they're going to open this, I want to be able to capture them right away. And I thought, what better way to do this than to talk about something that I know everybody has experienced before, but just never heard it in this way. And I wanted to be the one to just say, you know what, I'm going to do something different that nobody's ever done. And I'm going to start the book off and I'm going to make sure I put multiple letters in there, a letter from certain things and a letter to certain things. And so for me, that letter that changed everything, the reason why I wanted it to start the book off, I don't know if I kind of want to spoil it for him, but you know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't want to spoil it at the same time. But that first letter is the one that really sets the tone. So I'm not going to spoil that, but I'll talk about the
Yeah.
other letters. The
Mm,
letter from doubt.
mm-hmm.
Listeners, this was a letter from doubt telling me all of the reasons why I should not separate from the Marine Corps. This was
Mm,
the letter from doubt telling me all the reasons why, think about it. What if you fail? What would they think about you? Remember when you tried this the last time and it didn't work out in your favor? Like, think about it. We don't want to be humiliated like that again. Doubt will
mm,
creep in. And I chose to put the things that are happening in our minds anyway. I chose to put that down on paper. Check this out. It says that the average human has over 70,000 thoughts per day.
yep.
Of those 70,000 thoughts, 75% of those thoughts are recurring thoughts. Depending on where you are in your life, if it's something positive, you're in a great relationship, you and your boss are good, your kids are doing well, those recurring thoughts can motivate you and send you to do phenomenal things. But if those 70%, those negative thoughts that are reoccurring, that's a problem. Those recurring thoughts are a problem, right?
Yep.
And that becomes the whispers of doubt. And you may not see it on paper, but they're writing you that letter every day.
That part.
Why would you leave that good job? I know you want to pursue that. Why would you leave that job though? It's stable. It's stable. You don't want to take the chance of going out there being an entrepreneur. Why would you do that? Look at how many people fail. There's a reason why. There's a reason why most small businesses fail. Come on, Mellissa T, you shouldn't do that. Stay right here where it's safe. Stay
Hmm.
right here where it's safe. Don't worry about the deadly seas. Can I jump there in the book? Don't worry about
Hey.
the deadly seas. The deadly seas, for those in the book, I talk about them. And when you hear deadly seas, you think about water. I'm always talking about navigating. But those deadly seas that I'm talking about are comfort and complacency. Those things destroy people. That's not a letter that's in that book, but they destroy people. You're super comfortable, and the doubt will remind you what it feels like to be comfortable. It won't talk
Hmm.
to you about what it means to be complacent. It will remind you of how comfortable it is to lay in bed at 5:30, 6:30, 7 when you said you wanted to make your health a priority. Comfort will make you stay there. Comfort will make you stay in a relationship knowing you're not getting fully fed, getting what you need, because you don't want to go and try to start over because you invested a year of your time. Well, I would rather invest another year of my time finding the right partner than another 10 years trying to figure out what have I done with my life. And so
Mm.
the other letter that drives that is a letter to fear. That letter to fear came from me saying that I have to take charge. Saying that I'm going to walk away from a sure promotion and reach the highest enlisted rank I can as a Marine and be able to, why would you walk away from that? Why would you walk away from having more Marines than you've ever been in charge of? Well, the reason why I had to walk away from it because I really had to address that fear. I had to address fear. I had to address conquering comfort and complacency because the push that everyone was trying to have on me to get me to stay in wasn't as great as the pull I know God had on me and my gifts for me to go and leave and do what it was I needed to do. So I needed to write that letter to fear saying, you had control over my grandmother and the reason why
Mm.
she do certain things. You had some control over my mom a few times, but listen, fear, you have no control over me, and this relationship stops here and stops now. My kids won't go through what I went through. Fear, I'm staring you in the face, telling you that you don't own me. So when I wrote these letters, I wanted people to read them, the letters from doubt, the letter to themselves, and that letter to fear, to understand that you can write your own letters as well to be able to take charge of your lives.
And that was actually the follow-up question I wanted to ask. Like, when you wrote that letter, did you feel a change in you? Like, did that cause a release in your body and in your mind once it was completed?
Yeah, the first letter did. The rest of them, once I answered that call, I don't know if we can do this. Can we read that? Can we do page 5?
Sure.
Can we do,
Absolutely. I'm happy too. Like these folks need to know what's up.
you
They need to
know,
know why the book is so good. You know what I mean?
look, I don't keep it. It's never far from me, right?
Right.
So here's because I want them to understand what this is. And so it says, Dear Demaias. So you're just gonna lay there and act like you didn't make me a promise. You know, there's no way I can do this by myself, and yet you keep telling me I got you and that we'll do it tomorrow. Yet it seems to me like everything else and everyone else is far more important to you than I am. They mean more to you than I do, and clearly they're worth more because they're who you spend your time with. When you decided this was what you wanted, I was all in. There was no doubt in my mind. You convinced me. You wrote me notes as a constant reminder that we would always be your top priority. You told me all I needed to do was be patient and everything I ever wanted us to be would come to fruition. When you woke up, I was the first thing on your mind. You daydreamed about me all day, and before you closed your eyes at night, it was me who captured your thoughts. And now the entire day is gone, and once again, I'm left feeling as if what you're telling me isn't what will be. I cannot help but wonder how many others you've left feeling this way. Love always, despite everything, your goals. When I wrote your goals, there was a overwhelming force that says you have to do this now. Because if you don't, this relationship that you have right now with your goals will forever be broken. Now is the time. Now is the time for you to do it. That's why the book ends with the FPRN. I had to become focused. And when I became focused, I realized how powerful I was. I had a friend of mine that told me years ago, he was like, Demyas, you played instruments, you do music, you do spoken word. He was like, I'm always seeing you do something. He said, and I see your gifts like a floodlight. And that floodlight is just illuminating everything you have going on. He said, but if you can just take that floodlight and you can concentrate on one thing, if you can concentrate on one thing, he says you're going to be phenomenal. And so I became focused. And when you amplify light and you put something behind it, amps behind it, it becomes powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that regular light can become a laser. It can catch things on fire. So I became focused, and in turn, that made me powerful. And when I became focused and powerful, it made me relentless. And when a person understands that they're powerful from their level of focus and they're relentless, they can fully realize that the time is now. And when I wrote that letter, I knew that it was my time and I was not going to let anything stop me from doing it.
Okay, so I'm gonna recap that real quick because I was gonna actually ask you about that. I saw that section. I was like, wait, but I don't see the RN. I saw the focus and the powerful, and I was like,
Yeah.
wait, where's the RN? But
Yeah.
just to recap that, y'all, focus, powerful, relentless. Now, that's what those letters mean. Okay, so you'll see that stuff pop up on the screen. Y'all know I won't leave you out. I always put the graphics up to be helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for going over those elements within the book. I think like this is one that can walk people through the process of at least starting
Yeah.
their deep work and kind of going further. Like one of the things I'm kind of leading my folks to also, if it's affordable at the moment, if it's something you can do at the moment, it's also therapy. Like
Yeah.
start with the emotional intelligence, like get that snapshot of where you are right now. But as Dimyas pointed out, elevation requires help. And sometimes that help is much more impactful. It can take you much further when you're dealing with someone who is trained
Absolutely.
to,
Absolutely.
to lead you to lead you through the process.
Yeah.
So, and of course the other option is with a coach, which is, you know, is what
Yeah.
Dimyas also is.
Yeah.
Lots of notes, right? Yeah, Demias is an incredible wealth of information as it relates to emotional intelligence, EQ, and being able to being able to do the deep work, being able to walk someone through that process. So, if his coaching is a fit for you, by all means, reach out. You'll see his information on the screen, and I have it in the show notes below if you prefer to find it there and click on the link directly. But yeah, definitely take advantage of his coaching if you want to catch him during any of his workshops or seminars, or want to reach out to him to speak at a workshop or seminar that you might be hosting or coordinating. By all means, reach out to him there. And please, by all means, please get a copy of this book. As you can see, it's not that big. It's not that thick in terms of size. And as I mentioned before, it's an easy read, y'all. Like, easy read. There's space between the words. It looks great. And as I mentioned, there are different exercises within the book in several of the chapters, so you can apply it practically in your life. And if you want him back, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know, like, please bring him back. We want to see him more often. By all means, we'll make that happen for you. And of course, if you haven't yet, subscribe here at the Getting the Win show. You can subscribe on YouTube at Getting the Win. You can follow me on Pinterest, Threads, and Instagram at Getting the Win show. In the meantime, have a great rest of your Wednesday and a great rest of your week. Peace. Beat procrastination with an attitude. Go to gettingthewingear.com. We've got shirts that deliver that message of your strong focus and dedication to your hashtag luxury item, because your goal is super important. You are super important, and it's important that the world knows that you know that. Give them the message of focus, of self-work, of self-improvement, and empowerment. Go to gettingthewingear.com. Check out the shirts, sweats, mugs, bags if you need it, and give yourself that reminder, give the world that reminder that you are indeed a goal getter. You are indeed a winner.